Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! Video. Throughout the 8 Yu-Gi-Oh! Shows, we have seen some insanely crazy turns, and in this video, I am going to be going over what I believe are the top 10 craziest turns in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Throughout my 8 years of running this channel, this has been a video topic that has been requested quite a bit, and I am very excited to finally make this video, and it was a tough video to make because there are a lot of really just insane turns throughout all of the shows. So just for the record, we are not including anything from Duelist Kingdom. I feel like that would have been a little bit of a cop-out since the rules of Yu-Gi-Oh! Did not exist while the Duelist Kingdom arc was going on, and all of those turns could be considered crazy. So we're not considering anything from that arc. And this list consisted of shocking moments within the turns themselves that made them memorable, and crazy combos that are so unbelievable, it's hard to imagine ever being able to pull them off in real life. So some of these entries are going to be just shocking moments within the turns, and some will just be insane combos that are hard to even fathom. Every show is eligible: Duel Monsters, GX, 5Ds, Zexal, Arc 5, Vrain, 7s, and Go Rush. And without further ado, let's just get right to it. I hope you all enjoy. Number 10, Seto Kaiba versus Ishizu from Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters. One of my favorite duels from the original show, and certainly a duel that I did not think I would like nearly as much as I did the first time I watched it. Kaiba's final turn is incredible for one reason and one reason only. He sacrifices God. This is a concept that is so ridiculous to even fathom, given how the Egyptian gods were written and presented all throughout the show. A duelist would go to incredible lengths to do whatever they could in order to summon Slifer, Obelisk, or Ra, and when they had these monsters out, it was almost always game over for the opponent. Kaiba successfully summons Obelisk earlier in the duel, and it seems like Ishizu's loss is certain. However, Ishizu had a strategy in place that was going to destroy Obelisk and cost Kaiba the duel the second he attacked with it. Thanks to the interference of the Millennium Rod, Kaiba receives a call from Blue Eyes White Dragon and does the unimaginable. He tributes Gadget Soldier and Obelisk the freaking Tormentor in order to summon Blue Eyes. The whole turn is surreal because the thought of tribute summoning an Egyptian god is just wild. Good thing Kaiba did though, as it won him the duel and put him into the semis of Battle City. It's certainly one of the crazier turns we've seen from a pure shock value perspective in my opinion, and it kicks off our list. Number 9, Judai vs. Yubel, Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. The end of Season 3 was certainly a wild ending, and hey, if you watched this in the dub, this was the end of the show for you, and Judai dies. Yeah, this is another one that makes the list for the pure shock craziness rather than a crazy combo. And technically it's Yubel's turn where the craziness all happens during the final turn of this duel. Yubel uses the Spell Chronicle card to force Judai to choose one of the cards that's been banished by Yubel, to which he selects Super Polymerization. Yubel then goes ahead and states that they are going to attempt to fuse 12 monsters together, which would create Super Fusion God, a card that 20 years later we still have no idea what this thing would have looked like. All we know is that in order to summon it, you need to fuse 12 monsters with consecutive levels from 1 to 12. The fact Yubel was legitimately capable of pulling this feat off is ridiculous, but things get even more wackier when Judai decides he can't let that happen and activates Spiritual Fusion. This allows him to decide the fusion targets instead, and so naturally he picks himself and Yubel. It's genuinely a beautiful moment, but the technical absurdity during this turn always hypes me up. The mystery of Super Fusion God is still one of the most fascinating to me, and I think this turn deservedly makes this list. Number 8. Luke versus Gohei Yuga, Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s. I'd say this is the first one on our list that is here because of the insane combo that we see. Let me set the stage first and foremost. Gohei Yuga, the newest threat to our 7s cast, takes on Yuga in a duel. Unfortunately, Yuga is not able to complete the duel and passes out from exhaustion towards the end. Not unfortunately though, Luke decides to take over the duel using Yuga's deck and cards for the first time ever. I think that's the most impressive part to me. Everything that happens next is being done by a character who is basically using a brand new deck for the first time ever. Luke ends up going on what I personally believe is the craziest combo string that we have ever seen any duelist go on in the Rush Duel anime. Luke starts his turn with an empty field, while Yugioh had not only his ace on the field, but Seven's Road Magician as well. Luke, using a deck he has never played before, ends up going on an insane spree with plenty of top decks that help string along one of the crazier combos ever. Luke fusion summons Seven's Paladin eventually, and thanks to the final miracle draw of Wording Fairy, Luke is able to beat over Yugioh's ace and win the duel. It's an absurd combo on its own, only made even more absurd by the fact that Luke wasn't even using his own deck. One of my favorite duels in Sevens, and certainly one of the craziest rush turns and turns in general we have ever seen. Number 7, Yugioh versus Rory and Serena, Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5. Back to the brutality. I mean, this is one of the craziest turns ever because of how freaking intense this was. Yugioh loses control on his sanity and completely snaps as the power of Zark overtakes him and Yuto. This whole turn, from the music that hits at the start, to the draw, to the actual summoning of a new Odd Eyes Raging Dragon, which perfectly embodies Zark taking over the duel in its namesake, is so intense to watch. I absolutely love how Serena and Rin start celebrating when they think they are going to survive the turn, and Yugioh just says, "There won't be another turn," and reads off the effect of Raging Dragon. Even the attack against Serena and Rin that finishes them off is glistening with an intensity level that you don't often see, especially from the protagonist. And it's honestly a miracle that neither of them were seriously injured from it. The sequence coming out of seemingly nowhere, along with how memorable and intense it was, puts it at the number 7 spot on this list. Number 6, Yusei versus Zone, Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. One of the more common things we all think of when we think of 5Ds is the Signers and the Signer Dragons. When Yusei took on Zone, he had a really cool turn against him in the middle of the duel that led to one of the most iconic summonings ever, shooting Quasar Dragon. Before he summoned Quasar Dragon, Yusei was able to synchro summon Lifestream Dragon. He would then go on to summon Ancient Fairy Dragon, Black Rose Dragon, Red Dragon Archfiend, and Black Feather Dragon. One of the coolest shots is Yusei flying around with all the Signer Dragons, and then things would get golden. Yusei would take all these dragons and perform an over-Axel synchro and synchro summon Shooting Quasar Dragon, the first and only appearance this behemoth of a monster would make. Yusei then destroys all 5 Time Lords that Zone had on his field, and then special summons Shooting Star Dragon, who attacks Zone directly, and finally deals damage. Yusei managed to get all the Signer Dragons on the field, and summon a monster that was finally able to cause some harm to the seemingly invincible Zone. An awesome turn, I think the craziest from 5Ds, and certainly good for 6th on this list. Number 5, Yuma versus Nash, Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal. The duel that started it all has to be the duel that ends it all. Yuma takes on Nash/Shark one last time at the end of the show. Seeing the growth and the dynamic between these two throughout Zexal was one of my favorite elements in the show, and I think these two have one of the strongest character dynamics in the entire franchise. Yuma's final turn is insane, not just for the combos he pulls off to try to get the win, but for what happens at the end of it. The turn starts with Yuma and Astral, Zexal morphing into Zexal 3. Led by Utopia, Yuma and Nash would go back and forth for a bit with effects, until it was Yuma's Utopia with 8,000 attack thanks to Double or Nothing, striking Barry and Hope, Nash's new ace that represented the hopes and dreams of all the fallen Barrian Emperors. Yuma then gets reminded of the door vision that literally started the whole show, and shockingly cancels his attack, as he doesn't want to defeat Shark and lose someone who is extremely important to him, feeling there has to be another way to end the conflict. Nash then explains to us the effects of Glory of the Seven Emperors. Had the attack gone through, Yuma would have lost. Furthermore, because the change in Yuma's life points were 0 due to the canceled attack, Nash's life points become what the change in Yuma's life points were, which is 0. In one of the craziest turn of events, Nash loses the duel because Yuma decided not to go through with his attack because he didn't want to beat him. Unreal, and deserve it of a top 5 spot on this list. What a great plot twist. Number 4, Revolver versus Playmaker, Yugioh Vrains. Believe it or not, we have 2 turns from this duel that are going to be making this list. Crazy, I know, but the 4th duel and 2nd Master Duel between Revolver and Playmaker was nothing less than crazy. We saw some of the most ridiculous combo strings that I think we have ever seen in any duel ever. This particular one is the first extra link in Yugioh Vrains, which happens on Revolver's 3rd turn and the 5th turn of this duel. For those of you that don't know, an extra link is when an opponent link summons into both of the extra monster zones, usually by link summoning on the arrows of the corresponding link monsters. Well, in the middle of this duel, Revolver has an insanely long turn that sees him special summon 20 freaking times, including 5 different link summons. This setup and board is so ridiculously incredible that Playmaker's next turn just sees him set a card and pass. And if you watched Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, you know that if an opponent sets a card and passes, they really have absolutely no idea what to do. We may have seen a lot of link climbs throughout this show, but to see Revolver create this extra link against the strongest duelist, maybe in the entire franchise, was unreal. No doubt one of the most impressive and crazy turns we have seen a duelist have, and it's good for 4th in franchise history. Number 3, Spectre versus Lightning, Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains. These top 4 are really at the top of the list because of how insane the combos are. And what better way to kick off our top 3 with Spectre's turn versus Lightning? First of all, this duel was just the duel of extra links. Lightning gets an extra link done on his first turn, which, as we just went over earlier in this video, is super impressive. However, what Spectre did in this duel is more impressive. Not only did he manage to overcome Lightning's turn 1 extra link, but on his 2nd turn, he would manage to pull off the only extra link full mode that we have seen. This is when you fill up your entire field with link monsters, which is even more difficult to do than just a regular extra link. This entire turn has double-digit special and link summons and is just a crazy turn. And from a pure combo standpoint, given the fact that Lightning and extra linked earlier in the duel, it makes it one of the craziest and most impressive combos we have ever seen in Yu-Gi-Oh! And the craziest thing is Spectre doesn't even win. This is basically his grand finale as he loses the duel, dies, and never duels again. It's fitting that Spectre's character would go out with a grand performance, given how theatrical his character was. Number 2, Yami Yugi versus Noah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters. Let's talk about another insane combo string done by a character that's not using their own deck. And yes, I do feel that it's more impressive when a character pulls off a crazy turn using a different character's deck. Yami Yugi takes over the duel for Seto Kaiba after Noah Kaiba turns him into stone. The duel actually does go on for quite a bit after this, as Noah continues to whittle down Yami Yugi's life points while enhancing his. And then the turn happens. On turn 41 of this duel, yes, you heard me right, turn 41, we see one of the most insanely impossible combos that you can pull off. It's arguably more rare than top decking all 5 pieces of Exodia, since this is a perfect 6-card combo. Thanks to the Card of Sanctity, both players draw until they have 6 cards. Yami Yugi draws Monster Reborn, which revives a Blue Eyes White Dragon in the grave, as well as Fusion, 2 other Blue Eyes White Dragons, Quick Attack, and Defusion. While Quick Attack wouldn't be needed in modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, it was needed back in Battle City to allow Blue Eyes White Dragon to attack the turn it was summoned. Thanks to these 6 cards, Yami Yugi fuses Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, attacks with it, defuses it, and then attacks with the 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons to reduce Noah's 8,300 life points down to 0 and win the duel. It's an absolutely nutty combo and one that defies the odds of logic because of how specific the cards were that he drew, and it's certainly deserving of the top spot, but it just misses out on the number 1 spot on this list. Number 1, Playmaker versus Revolver, Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains. The craziest turn in the history of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime is Playmaker's final turn against Revolver in episode 46. This is the same duel we earlier discussed in which Revolver created the first extra link. Well, a couple of turns later, things looked impossible for Playmaker. He only had 25 life points left, pretty much an empty field, and was going up against a board that Revolver had that seemed impenetrable. But somehow, some way, Playmaker pulls it off. Thanks to banishing transaction rollback in the graveyard, the combo is able to get started. He sets off Gumblar's effect, which destroys a card in his hand, but that ends up allowing him to use Spam Mail's effect because it needed to be sent from the hand to the graveyard. Of course, he ends up using Revolver's monsters to create another extra link, and the top decks he gets on this turn are just insane. It's not filled with as many special summons and link summons as we have seen before, but it just shows how meticulously ridiculous this combo had to be in order to break Revolver's board and win the duel. It's a turn I watch quite often, and it always has made me convinced that Playmaker is the strongest duelist in the franchise. Just an unreal sequence of events against a very strong opponent in Revolver, and a board on Revolver's side that had plenty of negates and combo breakups. There are a lot of elements that make this the most impressive turn in the franchise, specifically the fact that he had one card in his hand, nothing on his field, facing an extra link, and only 25 life points left. This is, in my opinion, the craziest turn in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! And there you go. That is the 10 craziest turns in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you feel I missed any, please let me know. I'm already aware there are plenty of insane turns that I have missed because there have just been so many insane turns throughout the franchise of Yu-Gi-Oh! This is definitely a video I could see myself making a part 2 on at some point because there really are an insane amount of crazy turns. But let me know your thoughts on my list. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'm going to talk to you in the comments down below, and I hope you have an amazing day. Take care, guys.